Picture this scenario. The realms of Oblivion shake as ancient powers clash in the most epic battle that could ever happen. 16 Daedric princes, each ruling their own piece of reality, suddenly find themselves at war with one another. No alliances, no mercy, just pure ambition and the hunger for absolute power. This is not just some petty squabble between gods. This is the war that would reshape existence itself. Each prince brings their own unique brand of terror and might to the battlefield, from the knowledge-hoarding Hermaeus Mora to the destruction-loving Mehrunes Dagon. But when the dust settles and the screaming stops, only one can sit on the throne of all Oblivion. So who would it be? Let's break down every single Daedric prince and see what they bring to this cosmic war. Starting with the weakest contenders and working our way up to the ultimate victor, we'll look at their powers, their weaknesses, and most importantly, how they would fare when every other prince wants them dead. Let's start with Namira, the Lady of Decay. Now, don't get me wrong, Namira is still a god, but in a war between gods, being the goddess of gross things and darkness puts you at a serious disadvantage. Her whole thing revolves around decay, disease, and the ancient darkness that existed before creation. She rules over cannibals, the homeless, and outcasts. While she can spread plague and corruption, these are slow-acting weapons in a fast-paced divine war. Her followers are mostly weak mortals who live in sewers and eat people. Sure, that's terrifying to regular people, but when you're fighting beings who can tear holes in reality, having an army of cannibals isn't going to cut it. Namira would probably try to corrupt her enemies from within, spreading disease and madness through their ranks. But most Daedric princes are already immune to conventional disease, and many of them are already mad to begin with. Shogorath would probably thank her for the madness and ask for seconds. Her biggest problem is that her power is too passive and too slow. While she's busy trying to rot away Mehrunes Dagon's army, he's already torn a hole through her realm and set everything on fire. She might be able to take down some of the weaker princes if given enough time, but in an all-out war, time is the one thing she wouldn't have. The ancient darkness she represents is powerful in theory, but it's the kind of power that works over centuries, not in the heat of battle. Her realm would become a festering wound in reality, spreading corruption to neighboring realms, but by the time that corruption takes hold, the war would probably be over. She could try to hide in the deepest, darkest places of Oblivion, waiting for the other princes to weaken each other, but even that strategy requires her enemies to ignore her long enough for it to work. In reality, stronger princes would see her realm as an easy target for expansion, and her followers as pathetic obstacles to be swept aside. Namira would be one of the first to fall, probably consumed by stronger princes who see her realm as easy pickings. Next up, we have Vermina, the Prince of Nightmares and Dreams. Vermina has some serious potential in this war, because dreams and nightmares affect everyone, even other Daedric princes. Her realm of quagmire is a twisted maze of every bad dream that's ever been dreamed. She can invade minds, create horrifying illusions, and drive people insane with terror. But here's the thing about nightmares. They only work if your target can actually be scared. Many of the Daedric princes have seen and done things that would make nightmares seem like pleasant bedtime stories. Mehrunes Dagon literally embodies destruction and chaos. Molag Bal creates suffering so terrible that no dream could match it. Boeotia has betrayed and murdered so many people that guilt probably doesn't even register anymore. Vermina's power is also mostly in your head. She can mess with your mind, but she can't really destroy you physically in the same way that other princes can. She might be able to drive some princes temporarily insane or confuse them with illusions, but that's not enough to win a war. Her realm would become a major strategic problem though, because any army trying to march through it would find themselves lost in an endless maze of their own fears. Soldiers would be fighting battles against enemies that don't exist while the real threats sneak up behind them. She could probably use this to her advantage by offering safe passage to some princes in exchange for alliances, then betraying them once they're trapped in her nightmare realm. The problem is that her power requires her targets to actually sleep or dream, and in a war for survival, most princes would probably find ways to stay awake or protect their minds. Her best bet would be to form alliances and use her power to support stronger princes, but in a free-for-all battle, she'd be picked off pretty quickly. The stronger princes would see right through her illusions and crush her before she could do any real damage. And let's continue with Peryite, and this might surprise some people because he's called the Taskmaster and is technically in charge of ordering the lower realms of Oblivion. But being a cosmic filing clerk doesn't make you a great warrior. Peryite's main thing is disease and pestilence, kind of like Namira but more organized about it. He's responsible for making sure that plagues happen when they're supposed to, and that the natural order of disease and death continues. His realm is full of poisonous gases and disease landscapes that would kill most mortals just by breathing the air. In theory, Peryite could unleash massive plagues that would weaken entire armies before the fighting even starts. He could probably create diseases specifically designed to harm other Daedric princes, which is actually pretty scary when you think about it. Imagine a plague that makes you forget how to use magic, or a disease that makes your own powers turn against you. But again, his power is too slow and too indirect for a massive war. By the time his plagues take effect, the other princes would have already torn each other apart. Plus, as I said, many princes are probably immune to disease anyway. Mehrunes Dagon burns too hot for germs to survive. Molag Bal feeds on suffering, so disease might actually make him stronger. And Sheogorath is already so insane that a little plague madness wouldn't even register. Peryite's other problem is that his role as the cosmic organizer means he's probably too focused on maintaining order to be truly aggressive. He might see this war as a disruption that needs to be controlled, rather than an opportunity for conquest. His realm would be incredibly dangerous to invade because of all the diseases and poisons, but it's also not particularly well defended in military terms. He doesn't have vast armies of demons or skilled warriors, just a bunch of diseased creatures and plague spirits. Peryite would probably try to weaken everyone else first, then sweep in to claim victory over the survivors. But that strategy only works if the other princes give him time to work, which they absolutely would not. Moving on, we have Malakath, the patron of the spurned and ostracized. Malakath is interesting because he used to be Trinimac, one of the most powerful Aedra, before he got eaten and pooped out by Boeotia. Yeah, that's actually what happened according to the lore. Being literally crapped out by another god would give anyone some serious anger issues, and Malakath has been nursing that grudge for thousands of years. His whole thing is protecting outcasts, the betrayed, and anyone who's been treated unfairly. His realm, the Ashpit, is basically one giant fortress where all the rejects of creation come to prove their worth through combat. The place is a wasteland of ash and smoke where only the strongest survive, and everyone there has been hardened by a lifetime of being kicked around by stronger enemies. Malakath himself is a warrior god, and in terms of pure fighting ability, he's probably near the top of the list. He's got thousands of years of experience fighting impossible odds and coming out on top through sheer stubborn determination. His followers are all people who've been written off by everyone else, which means they fight with the desperate fury of those who have nothing left to lose. In a war setting, that kind of motivation can be incredibly powerful. The problem is that his power comes from being the underdog, from representing those who have been cast out and betrayed. In a war between equals, that specific advantage disappears. He's also been seriously weakened since his transformation from Trinimac. He went from being one of the strongest divine beings to being the god of people nobody else wants. That's a massive downgrade in cosmic power. His realm, while defensible, doesn't have the resources to support a major military campaign. It's a place for outcasts to survive, not a base for conquest. Malakath would probably fight like a cornered animal, desperate and vicious, and absolutely refusing to give up. He might be able to take down a few other princes through sheer stubborn fury, but he lacks the raw power to win the whole war. His best chance would be if the war dragged on long enough for him to rally all the lesser Daedra who feel spurned by the princes, turning it into a class warfare situation. But in a quick, brutal conflict, he'd probably fall somewhere in the middle. Next up is Sanguine, who represents hedonism, debauchery, and having way too much fun. His realm of myriad realms of revelry is basically an eternal party where every vice and pleasure imaginable is available 24/7. There are countless pocket dimensions within his realm, each one dedicated to a different kind of excess. Wine that makes you see colors that don't exist, foods that give you visions of pure bliss, games where the stakes are pieces of your soul and everyone's happy to play. At first glance, you might think a party god wouldn't stand a chance in a serious war, but Sanguine is actually more dangerous than he appears. His power isn't just about having fun, it's about temptation and addiction. He can make people want things so badly that they'll destroy themselves trying to get them. In a war setting, he could probably turn enemy armies against each other by making them fight over resources, women, or power. He could also corrupt other princes by offering them things they secretly desire, turning their own wants against them. Imagine if he could make Mehrunes Dagon addicted to something other than destruction, or if he could tempt Hermias Mora with knowledge so forbidden that even the keeper of all secrets couldn't resist it. His realm would also be incredibly difficult to attack, because invading armies would be constantly tempted to stop fighting and start partying instead. How do you maintain military discipline when every step forward leads to new and amazing pleasures? The problem is that Sanguine himself doesn't seem that interested in conquest or domination. His whole philosophy is about living in the moment and enjoying yourself, which doesn't really lend itself to long-term strategic planning. He'd probably spend the first half of the war throwing parties and trying to get everyone else to just relax and have a good time. He might genuinely not understand why everyone is so worked up about ruling Oblivion when they could be having fun instead. By the time he realized that everyone else was serious about this whole war thing, it would probably be too late. Sanguine might survive longer than expected, simply because other princes might not see him as a serious threat, but eventually someone would get tired of his nonsense and put him out of the running. And let's continue with Clavicus Vile, the Prince of Wishes and Bargains. Now this guy is genuinely dangerous in a way that's hard to see coming. His whole thing is making deals with people, usually deals that technically give them what they asked for, but in the worst possible way. He's like a cosmic lawyer who specializes in finding loopholes in contracts that screw over his clients. His realm, the Fields of Regret, is full of people who thought they were smarter than him and learned otherwise the hard way. His power comes from being able to grant almost any wish, but always with a catch that makes the wisher regret asking. In a war between Daedric princes, this could actually be incredibly powerful. He could make deals with weaker princes, offering them power or protection in exchange for their loyalty, then twist those deals to serve his own purposes. Imagine if he offered to make Peryite's plagues more effective in exchange for half his realm, then made the plagues so effective they killed everyone, including Peryite's own followers. He could even try to make bargains with his enemies, offering them things they desperately want in exchange for temporary truces, then stabbing them in the back when they least expect it. His centuries of experience making deals means he knows exactly how to phrase contracts to hide devastating loopholes, and he's got the magical power to enforce those contracts even against other gods. He also has his companion Barbas, a Daedra who often appears as a talking dog and serves as his conscience, though Clavicus often ignores that conscience when it suits him. The problem is that other Daedric princes know how Clavicus Vile operates. They've probably all heard stories about mortals who made deals with him and got screwed over. They'd be extremely careful about making any kind of agreement with him, which limits his effectiveness. Also, his power seems to work best on desperate people who are willing to make bad deals, and most Daedric princes are too proud and too powerful to put themselves in that position. Flavicus Vile would probably survive the early stages of the war by playing different factions against each other, but eventually he'd run out of people willing to deal with him. Let's start moving into the more serious contenders with Hircine, the Huntsman, and Lord of the Hunt. This is where we start getting into the princes who might actually have a shot at winning this thing. Hircine is all about the thrill of the hunt, the joy of tracking down prey and taking them down. His realm, the hunting grounds, is an endless wilderness where the greatest hunt of all time never stops. It's a place where predators from every world and every time period compete to prove who's the ultimate hunter. What makes Hircine dangerous is that he's not just a hunter, he's the hunter. He represents the perfect predator, the ultimate alpha who sees everything else as either prey or competition. In a war between Daedric princes, this mindset is actually a huge advantage. While other princes might get distracted by politics or grudges or complicated schemes, Hircine would stay focused on the simple goal of tracking down and killing his enemies one by one. He's also got an army of werewolves, werebears, and other lycanthropes who are absolutely savage in combat. These aren't just regular shapeshifters, they're beings who've been blessed with Hircine's own hunting instincts and physical abilities. His realm gives him a massive home field advantage, since it's basically designed to be the perfect hunting ground. Any prince who tries to invade would find themselves lost in an endless forest where every tree and every shadow could be hiding a predator. The terrain itself would work against invaders, with paths that lead in circles and landscapes that shift to confuse and separate enemy forces. Hircine has also spent thousands of years hunting the most dangerous prey imaginable, including other divine beings and legendary heroes. He knows how to track enemies who can teleport, how to set traps for beings who can see the future, and how to take down opponents who are physically stronger than he is. The problem with Hircine is that hunting is typically a solo activity or something you do in small groups. He's used to stalking individual targets, not commanding massive armies in open warfare. He might struggle with the large-scale, strategic thinking that a war like this would require. His instincts are all about patience, stealth, and picking the right moment to strike. But in a chaotic war with multiple enemies, those tactics might not be enough. His best bet would be to avoid the big battles and pick off isolated princes one at a time. But that strategy only works if the other princes are dumb enough to split up. And let's continue with Mephala, the web spinner and prince of murder, lies, and sex. Mephala is absolutely terrifying because her power is all about things that happen in secret. She's the goddess of assassinations, political conspiracies, and bedroom betrayals. Her realm is a massive web where she sits at the center, feeling every vibration and knowing every secret. The web isn't just metaphorical either. It's a literal structure made of silk that's stronger than steel and sticky enough to trap gods. What makes Mephala so dangerous in this war is that she wouldn't fight fair. While other princes are busy having epic battles and making grand speeches, she'd be quietly poisoning their allies, spreading false information, and turning their own servants against them. She's got connections everywhere because secrets and murders happen in every realm. She probably knows embarrassing or damaging information about every other prince, and she wouldn't hesitate to use it. Her followers include some of the best assassins and spies in all of creation, people who can slip past any defense and strike when their target least expects it. The Morak Tong, one of the most feared assassin guilds in existence, serves her directly. They're not just killers, they're artists who turn murder into a religious experience. In a war setting, her abilities would be incredibly valuable for gathering intelligence, eliminating key targets, and sowing discord among enemy ranks. She could probably turn the war into a paranoid nightmare where no prince trusts their own followers and everyone suspects everyone else of being a spy. Her realm would be nearly impossible to attack directly because it's designed to trap and disorient intruders. The web catches enemies and holds them while her servants close in for the kill, and the passages between different sections are filled with deadly traps and hidden assassins. The problem is that her power works best when she can operate from the shadows, manipulating events without revealing her hand. In an open war where everyone knows she's an enemy, some of her advantages disappear. Other princes would be watching for her schemes and protecting themselves against assassination attempts. She'd still be incredibly dangerous, but she'd have to be more direct than she's comfortable being. Mephala would probably try to survive by making temporary alliances while secretly plotting to betray her allies at the perfect moment. But that's a risky game when everyone knows that's exactly what she'd do. Next up is Azura, the Queen of Dawn and Dusk. Azura is one of the more sympathetic Daedric princes because she actually seems to care about mortals and isn't completely evil like most of the others. She's associated with prophecy, twilight, and the magic hour when day becomes night. Her realm of moon shadow is supposed to be incredibly beautiful, like a perfect version of the mortal world where everything is peaceful and lovely. The cities there are made of silver and moonstone, and the whole place has this ethereal quality that's supposed to inspire awe in anyone who sees it. But don't let her nice guy reputation fool you. Azura can be absolutely vicious when she's angry. Just ask the Chimer, who she cursed to have gray skin and red eyes after they broke their promises to her. She turned an entire race of people into the Dunmer because she felt betrayed. That takes some serious power and a serious grudge. What makes Azura dangerous in this war is her connection to prophecy and fate. She can see possible futures and manipulate events to make sure they happen the way she wants. She's not just predicting what might happen, she's actively working to make certain outcomes more likely while making others impossible. This could give her an enormous advantage in a complex war with multiple moving pieces. She could potentially predict her enemies' moves and counter them before they even make them. She's also got a reputation for being trustworthy compared to other Daedric princes, which could help her form alliances with some of the less evil ones. Her followers are extremely devoted, including the Dunmer who still worship her despite the whole curse thing. They see her as a stern but loving mother figure who punishes them for their own good. In a war setting, having fanatically loyal followers who believe they're fighting for a just cause is a massive advantage. Her realm would also be incredibly defensible because it's so beautiful and peaceful that attacking it would feel like committing sacrilege, even to other princes. The problem is that Azura's power seems to work best over long periods of time. Prophecies and fate manipulation are slow processes that require patience and careful planning. In a fast-paced war, she might not have time to set up the complex chains of events she normally relies on. She'd probably try to position herself as a force for stability and order, rallying the less chaotic princes against the more destructive ones. But that only works if those other princes are willing to work together. And let's continue with Nocturnal, the Night Mistress and patron of thieves. Nocturnal is all about darkness, secrets, and taking things that don't belong to you. Her realm of Evergloam is a place of eternal twilight, where shadows have more substance than light. It's a place where darkness itself is alive and constantly shifting, where paths appear and disappear based on who's walking them and what they're trying to find. She's the patron goddess of the Thieves Guild and anyone else who makes their living in the darkness. What makes Nocturnal incredibly dangerous is that she controls luck itself, at least when it comes to sneaky activities. Her followers can slip past any guard, pick any lock, and steal anything they want because she literally makes fortune favor them. Guards look the other way at the exact right moment. Keys fall out of pockets right when they're needed, and getaway routes always seem to appear just when things look hopeless. In a war setting, this could translate to incredible tactical advantages. Her armies could appear anywhere without warning, strike at vulnerable targets, and disappear before anyone could retaliate. She could probably steal other princesses' artifacts, weapons, or even their loyal servants right out from under them. Imagine if she just walked into Mehrunes Dagon's armory and took all his best weapons, or if she convinced Hermaius Mora's most trusted scholars to to switch sides by offering them access to secrets even he doesn't know. Her realm gives her perfect intelligence gathering capabilities, since thieves and spies report to her from every corner of existence. She probably knows more about what's happening in other princes' realms than they do themselves. She also has access to the skeleton key, an artifact that can unlock absolutely anything, including concepts like the barrier between life and death, or the lock that keeps someone's power contained. The downside is that Nocturnal's power is all about avoiding direct confrontation. Thieves don't win by fighting fair. They win by not fighting at all if they can help it. In a war where eventually someone has to actually defeat their enemies, her preferred tactics might not be enough. She's also bound by certain rules and contracts related to her role as the patron of thieves, which might limit her options in a total war scenario. She'd probably try to stay neutral for as long as possible, stealing from all sides while they tear each other apart, then make her move when there's only one or two weakened survivors left. It's actually a pretty good strategy, but it relies on other people doing the heavy lifting for her. Moving on to the heavy hitters, let's continue with Molag Bal, the King of Rape and Lord of Domination. This guy is pure evil, no redeeming qualities whatsoever. His whole thing is domination, corruption, and making people suffer as much as possible before they break. His realm of Cold Harbor is basically hell, a twisted mockery of the mortal world, where everything is designed to cause pain and despair. The sky is on fire, the ground is made of broken glass and bone, and the air itself burns your lungs when you breathe it. What makes Molag Bal terrifying in a war is that he gets stronger from causing suffering. The more pain and fear he creates, the more powerful he becomes. It's not just that he enjoys making people suffer, it's that their agony literally feeds his power and makes him more dangerous. He's also got massive armies of soul-shriven, people whose souls he's stolen and twisted into mindless servants. These aren't just regular undead, they're beings whose very essence has been corrupted and enslaved. They feel no pain, know no fear, and follow orders without question because they literally don't have souls anymore. In a war between gods, having an army that gets stronger every time they kill someone is a massive advantage. Molag Bal also has thousands of years of experience breaking and corrupting even the strongest-willed individuals. He knows how to find psychological weaknesses and exploit them. He could probably turn some of the other princesses' servants against them, or at least make them less effective fighters by filling them with doubt and despair. His realm is perfectly designed for warfare, with fortresses and torture chambers that could serve as military bases. The whole place is basically one giant war machine dedicated to producing suffering and despair. He's got access to some of the most powerful weapons and artifacts related to domination and corruption, including his famous mace that can steal souls with a single blow. The problem is that Molag Bal's evil nature makes it impossible for him to form genuine alliances. Other princes might temporarily work with him, but they'd never trust him enough for any real cooperation. He's also so focused on causing suffering that he might get distracted from actually winning the war. He'd probably spend too much time torturing captured enemies instead of pressing his advantages. His obsession with domination also means he might make strategic mistakes by trying to corrupt and control enemies instead of just killing them quickly. Still, his raw power and his army of enslaved souls make him a serious contender. Let's start with the really dangerous ones now, beginning with Boethiah, the Prince of Plots, Deceit, and Unlawful Overthrow. Boethiah is all about ambition, betrayal, and tearing down the established order. Her whole philosophy is that the strong should rule and the weak deserve whatever happens to them. She's the one who convinced the Chimer to abandon their traditional gods and follow the tribunal instead, and she's also the one who transformed Trinimag into Malakath through some kind of divine consumption that the lore doesn't get too specific about. Let's just say it involved eating another god and leave it at that. Her realm, Attribution's Share, is a place of constant testing, where followers prove their worth through combat and betrayal. It's not just about being strong, it's about being clever and ruthless enough to survive in a world where everyone is trying to stab you in the back. What makes Bowedia dangerous in this war is that she specializes in turning allies against each other. She's the master of the long con, the one who can convince you that your best friend is secretly your worst enemy. Her followers include some of the most skilled warriors in creation, people who've proven their worth by betraying and murdering their former allies. They're not just fighters, they're survivors who've learned to think tactically and strike at the perfect moment. She could probably infiltrate other princes' organizations and turn them against each other from within. Imagine if she convinced Mehrunes Dagon's most trusted generals that he was planning to betray them, or if she made Hermaeus Mora scholars believe that he was hiding important knowledge from them. Her realm is designed to test people through combat and betrayal, creating the ultimate soldiers who are loyal only to strength. The tournaments and trials there aren't just entertainment, they're training exercises that produce the deadliest warriors in Oblivion. She's also got access to powerful artifacts related to betrayal and assassination, including weapons that grow stronger each time they're used to kill someone who trusts the wielder. The problem is that everyone knows Bowedia can't be trusted. Her reputation for betrayal is so well established that other princes would be expecting her to stab them in the back. This limits her ability to form the temporary alliances that might be necessary in a complex war. She'd probably try to play all sides against the middle, but that's a dangerous game when everyone is watching for it. Still, her combination of martial skill, tactical cunning, and sheer ruthlessness makes her a major threat. Next up, we have Mehrunes Dagon, the Prince of Destruction, Change, Revolution, Energy, and Ambition. This guy is basically the god of breaking things and starting over. His whole purpose is to tear down what exists and make room for something new, usually through massive violence and destruction. His realm of the Deadlands is a hellscape of lava, ash, and ruined cities where his armies of Dremora practice the art of warfare. The entire place looks like a battlefield that's been burning for thousands of years, because that's basically what it is. What makes Mehrunes Dagon absolutely terrifying in a war is that destruction is literally what he was created to do. He doesn't just enjoy fighting, he embodies the very concept of tearing things down. His armies of Dremora are some of the most skilled and disciplined warriors in all of Oblivion, basically an endless horde of demonic soldiers who live for battle. These aren't chaotic berserkers, they're professional soldiers who've been fighting for millennia and know every trick of warfare. They're organized into legions with clear command structures, and they can coordinate complex military operations across multiple realms simultaneously. He's got access to some of the most powerful weapons and artifacts in existence, including his famous razor that can kill almost anything in one hit. His realm is perfectly suited for producing and training armies, with weapon forges that never stop working, and training grounds where new recruits learn to fight by battling experienced veterans. The whole place is basically one giant military-industrial complex dedicated to warfare and destruction. He's also got thousands of years of experience leading military campaigns, including successful invasions of the mortal world. The Oblivion Crisis proved that he can organize and execute complex multi-front wars against enemies who have home field advantage. His biggest strength is probably his single-minded focus on destruction. While other princes might get distracted by personal grudges or complicated schemes, Mehrunes Dagon would just focus on smashing his way through whatever stands in front of him. The problem with Mehrunes Dagon is that he's not great at building things or holding territory. He's amazing at tearing down his enemies' defenses and destroying their armies, but he's not so good at the administrative side of conquest. He also tends to be pretty direct in his approach, preferring massive frontal assaults to subtle schemes. This makes him predictable, and some of the craftier princes might be able to outmaneuver him. But honestly, when you can field armies of elite demon warriors, and you personally wield weapons that can kill gods, strategy becomes less important. Mehrunes Dagon would probably just smash his way through most of his opposition through sheer overwhelming force. And let's continue with Sheogorath, the Mad God, Prince of Madness, and Lord of the Never Dare. This is where things get really weird and really dangerous. Sheogorath doesn't follow normal rules, because madness itself doesn't follow normal rules. His realm of the Shivering Isles is split into two parts, mania and dementia, representing the two different types of insanity. Mania is all bright colors and manic energy, where everything is exciting and wonderful and completely unpredictable. Dementia is dark and paranoid and depressing, where everyone suspects everyone else and nothing ever goes right. Both sides are completely insane, just in different ways. What makes Sheogorath absolutely unpredictable and therefore incredibly dangerous is that he operates on a completely different level of reality than everyone else. While other princes are making logical plans and strategic decisions, Sheogorath might decide to turn all their armies into cheese just because he thinks it would be funny. His power over madness means he can drive his enemies completely insane, making them unable to think clearly or make rational decisions. But it's not just regular insanity, it's divine madness that affects the very fabric of reality around the victim. He could probably turn other princes' followers against them by making them too crazy to follow orders, or he could make enemy armies fight each other instead of him by convincing them that their allies are actually their enemies. His own followers are already insane, which makes them immune to a lot of psychological attacks and also makes them completely unpredictable in battle. The thing about fighting crazy people is that you never know what they are going to do next, and that's a huge tactical advantage. They might charge straight into overwhelming enemy forces, or they might decide to have a tea party in the middle of a battlefield, or they might suddenly develop tactical genius that lets them win impossible battles. Sheogorath has also shown that he can manipulate reality in ways that don't make sense to anyone else. He once turned an entire invasion force into sweet rolls just to make a point. He can make physics work differently just by thinking about it hard enough. The problem with Sheogorath is that his madness works against him as much as it works for him. He might have the power to win the entire war, but he also might get distracted by a pretty butterfly and forget what he was doing. His goals and motivations change constantly, so even if he starts winning, he might suddenly decide he doesn't want to rule Oblivion after all. He might declare victory and go home, or he might decide that the real victory was the friends he made along the way. Still, the sheer unpredictability makes him one of the most dangerous princes in any conflict. Let's continue with Hermaeus Mora, the Keeper of Knowledge, Gardener of Men, and Prince of Knowledge and Memory. Hermaeus Mora is probably the most alien and incomprehensible of all the Daedric princes. He appears as a mess of tentacles and eyes, like some cosmic horror from beyond reality. His realm of Apocrypha is an endless library containing every bit of knowledge that has ever existed or ever will exist. It's not just books either, it's living knowledge that moves and changes and grows. The books write themselves, the shelves rearrange when you're not looking, and the corridors lead to different places depending on what you're trying to learn. What makes Hermaeus Mora incredibly dangerous is that knowledge truly is power, especially when you have all of it. He knows every spell that's ever been cast, every weakness that every being has ever had, every secret that's ever been kept. In a war between gods, having perfect information about your enemies is an almost insurmountable advantage. He could probably predict exactly what every other prince is going to do and prepare perfect counters for all of them. He knows which spells will work against which enemies, which tactics they're likely to use, and which psychological pressure points will make them make mistakes. His realm is also a perfect fortress because it's literally infinite, and anyone who tries to invade gets lost in endless corridors of forbidden knowledge. The books themselves are dangerous because they contain information that can drive people insane just by reading it. Imagine trying to fight a war while your soldiers are constantly being tempted by books that promise to teach them ultimate power if they just stop fighting and start reading instead. He can also drive people insane just by showing them truths their minds can't handle. What if he showed Mehrunes Dagon the mathematical formula that proves destruction is ultimately pointless? Or showed Molag Bal the philosophical argument that proves suffering serves no purpose? His servants include some of the most powerful wizards and scholars in existence, people who've traded their sanity for access to ultimate knowledge. They're not great fighters in the traditional sense, but they know spells and techniques that most people have never even heard of. The problem is that Hermaeus Mora is so focused on collecting and organizing knowledge that he might not be interested in actually using it to conquer anything. He seems more like a cosmic librarian than a warrior god. But if he did decide to get serious about this war, his combination of infinite knowledge and reality-altering magic would make him almost impossible to beat. He'd know exactly how to counter every attack and exploit every weakness. The only question is whether he'd care enough to actually try to win. And let's continue with Meridia, the Lady of Infinite Energies and enemy of the undead. Now technically there's some debate about whether Meridia is actually a Daedric prince or something else, since she used to be one of the Magnage before she got kicked out of that group for reasons that aren't entirely clear, but she's generally counted among the Daedric princes, so we'll include her here. Meridia is associated with light, energy, and life, which makes her pretty much the opposite of most other Daedric princes. Her realm of the Colored Rooms is supposed to be a place of pure light and energy where undead creatures are instantly destroyed. The whole place radiates with power that's painful to creatures of darkness but healing to those who serve the light. What makes Meridia dangerous in this war is that she's got access to some of the most powerful destructive forces in existence. Light and energy magic can be absolutely devastating when wielded by someone with her level of power. She can create beams of pure light that burn through anything, including the supposedly indestructible armor worn by other Daedric princes. She's also got a massive grudge against undead creatures and anything associated with death magic, which could give her extra motivation against princes like Molag Bal or Namira. Her followers are generally good-hearted people who fight against undead and other abominations, which means they're probably better disciplined and more organized than the servants of more chaotic princes. They fight because they believe they're doing the right thing, not because they're forced to or because they enjoy violence. That kind of moral conviction can be incredibly powerful in war, because soldiers who believe in their cause will fight harder and longer than those who are just following orders. Her realm would also be incredibly difficult for most other princes to attack, because the pure light and energy there would be painful or even deadly to creatures of darkness. Most Daedric princes are associated with dark or chaotic forces, so stepping into Meridia's realm would be like walking into a furnace. The problem is that Meridia's focus on light and life might put her at a disadvantage against princes who specialize in darkness and death magic. She's also more morally constrained than most other princes, which could limit her tactical options. She probably wouldn't be willing to use the kind of underhanded tactics that someone like Bowedia or Mephala would use without hesitation. She might refuse to torture prisoners for information, or she might hesitate to destroy civilian populations even if it would give her a strategic advantage. Still, her raw power and her moral clarity could make her a rallying point for the less evil princes to unite against the more destructive ones. Now let's end with the absolute powerhouse, beginning with Jigalek, the Prince of Order, and this is where things get really interesting. Jigalek is technically Sheogorath's other personality, the result of a curse placed on him by the other Daedric princes who were terrified of his power. See, Jigalek represents perfect order, mathematical precision, and absolute logical thinking. His realm was a place of perfect geometric structures, where everything was organized and efficient. The cities were laid out in perfect mathematical patterns. The laws were clear and consistently enforced, and every citizen knew exactly what their role was and how to perform it perfectly. The problem was that he was so good at bringing order to things that he was slowly taking over all of Oblivion, turning the chaotic realms of the other princes into perfectly organized extensions of his own realm. He wasn't doing this through conquest or violence. He was doing it by making order so attractive and efficient that people voluntarily chose to abandon chaos. His system was so perfect that it naturally spread to neighboring realms, like a mathematical equation that proves itself true wherever it's applied. The other princes got so scared of him that they all worked together to curse him into becoming Sheogorath, the opposite of everything he represented. This is literally the only time in recorded history that all the Daedric princes have ever agreed on anything, which tells you how terrified they were of Jiggalag's power. What makes Jiggalag absolutely terrifying is that perfect order is incredibly powerful when applied to warfare. While other princes might have chaotic armies that fight with individual skill and creativity, Jiggalag would have perfectly coordinated forces that work together with mathematical precision. His Knights of Order are described as being basically unstoppable because they operate as a perfect collective intelligence. Every soldier knows exactly what every other soldier is doing at all times, and they coordinate their attacks with impossible accuracy. They don't just fight as individuals who happen to be on the same side, they fight as a single organism with thousands of bodies and one perfectly logical mind. Jiggalag also has the advantage of perfect logical thinking, which means he wouldn't make emotional decisions or get distracted by personal grudges the way other princes might. He'd analyze the situation, determine the most efficient path to victory, and then execute that plan with absolutely no deviation. He wouldn't waste time on revenge or personal satisfaction, he'd just do whatever was necessary to achieve his goals in the most direct way possible. The fact that the other princes were so afraid of him that they all worked together to stop him says a lot about how dangerous he really is. If he's somehow freed from the Sheogorath curse during this war, he'd probably be the immediate favorite to win the whole thing. And after all the battles are fought and all the schemes have played out, the question remains which prince would actually sit on the throne of all Oblivion. Based on raw power, tactical ability, and sheer survivability, there are really only 3 or 4 serious contenders. Hermaeus Mora has the advantage of infinite knowledge and could potentially predict and counter every move his enemies make, but his scholarly nature might prevent him from being aggressive enough to actually win. Myrrunas Dagon has the military might and the experience to smash through most opposition, but his straightforward approach makes him vulnerable to more subtle enemies. Sheogorath has reality-warping powers that could end the war instantly, but his madness makes him too unpredictable to count on. But the real winner would probably be Jiggalag, assuming he somehow breaks free from his curse. Perfect order applied to warfare is almost impossible to beat, especially when combined with forces that operate as a unified intelligence. His Knights of Order would coordinate perfectly, while his enemies exhaust themselves fighting each other. He'd wait for the right moment, then sweep across Oblivion like a mathematical theorem made manifest, turning chaos into order one realm at a time. The other princes cursed him for a reason. They knew he was too powerful to face in open combat. But if Jiggalag remains trapped as Sheogorath, then the war becomes much more interesting. In that scenario, Hermaeus Mora would probably emerge as the victor through careful manipulation and superior knowledge, using the other prince's conflicts to eliminate his rivals while staying safely hidden in his infinite library. He'd let Myrrunas Dagon and Molag Bal tear each other apart, let Boeotia and Mephala exhaust themselves with schemes and betrayals, then emerge when everyone else is weakened to claim victory through superior information and planning. The final battle would probably come down to knowledge versus raw power, with Hermaeus Mora's infinite library of secrets facing off against whoever survived the initial chaos. And in the end, the tentacled horror from beyond reality would probably win through sheer intellectual superiority, turning Oblivion into one vast library where all knowledge is cataloged and controlled by a single, incomprehensible intelligence.